Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I want to show you a couple transitions that will help you decide which transition works best for you when you're doing a no-sew zone. I'm going to use the software in Intelliquilter because I don't have a project here on the quilt to show you, but I've had a few questions recently and I want to follow up on how you can create your no-sew zone. So let's create a no-sew zone in a background so that we can discuss how those transitions should be chosen. I'm going to design sew a quilt. I'm going to start new. I am going to set up a pantograph. How am I going to define the block? I'm going to mark on quilt. I'm going to say OK. Travel forward. I'm just creating a block that I'm going to place a pantograph in. You certainly can play with this and create a block where you can place a no-sew zone. So the block is completed, we'll say finished. I'm going to go out and pick a design to be in the background of this block. Going down to pantographs. I'm going to go to the end of it because I knew that I wanted to use this zebra edge to edge. I'm going to choose that for the odd rows, continue, that for the even rows, continue, and it comes in at the default of 12 inches, which of course isn't acceptable for this. First thing I'm going to do is touch row height, pattern height. I'm going to change it to 5 inches. That's starting to look a lot better. I do want to pay attention to my gap. It needs to be cleaned up just a little. You know, when you do pantographs, you need to move the spacing open and close to make sure that you like what you're getting. If you just accept what happens, maybe that's good, but maybe that's not. I like this, but I'm going to check true size. That's pretty dense quilting, but that's what I would really want if I were doing a no-sew zone. This background fill is going to be really nice because it travels back and forth. I'm going to be able to stay with that design and not feel like I'm confused about which way it's going to travel. This is an excellent design for background fill. And I'm going to say finished. It asks how I want to handle the transitions on the outside of the pantograph. I'm going to say continuous, accept, yes, I'm sure. Now let's bring in another pattern. Add edit pattern. Let's add a pattern. Let's go out to the block patterns. And let's use the current block on the screen. I'm going to go to my motifs. And I'm just going to pick this star. Continue. Intelliquilter brings that star in to fit the space. I'm using the star to demonstrate a no-sew zone. There you can see the pattern. I'm going to scale it down. I can also rotate it. I can do a lot of different things, but right now we're going to say we are finished. Now, we know that a no-sew zone is a block, and I just brought in a pattern, didn't I? So we need to change the pattern to a block in order to make it a no-sew zone. So I'm going to say finished on my pattern screen. I'm going to add edit block. I'm going to change pattern to block, and it asks which pattern I want to convert. I'm turning the pattern to a block and I have selected the star. Continue. Now I want to add a block. I want to add a no-sew zone. And it asks me to please select the patterns that will be affected by touching their points. All of these are going to be affected. Continue. And it says, how do I want to define the clipping block? I'm going to select an existing block. There are 2 blocks on the screen, the outside edge there and the star. Please select the No SewZone block by touching one of its points. This one turns red, continue. Immediately removes all of the design that is within that star. Finished. Now it says more than 12% of the selected patterns being clipped off. Do you want to continue? Yes, we do. It's asking what we want to use as our clipping conformation. Right now it has continuous selected. That means that when it bumps into the star, it's going to travel along the star. Go zoom full again, close that menu, and I'm going to look at my transition type and change it. Transition type, I'm going to go to plus. That puts me at jump stitches. So that is how it shows that it would travel if you chose jump stitch as your transition. So let's try again. Tie-offs. This shows how it would travel if you chose tie-off for your transition. So I'm going to go back to continuous. I'm going to accept it. Do you want to commit to these transitions? You will not be able to change them later. Yes, I do. Now I'm actually going to stitch this out so you can see how this looks. It's going to be fun. So it's time to sew the quilt. Now remember that I turned the pattern into a block. Now I would like to sew out the star, so I need to do something to take care of that. I can go to Add Edit Block, Block to Pattern, and choose that star to turn back into a pattern, and I'm going to say Continue. Now that gives me the option now to stitch out the pattern because I couldn't stitch out a block. I'm going to say Finished. I'm going to say Sew Quilt. I'm going to select the first pattern, which is going to be the star. I'm going to say Continue. Select the next pattern to quilt. I want to quilt the top row. Continue. And how do I want to connect these two? I want to stop and cut threads. Now I'm going to select the next pattern to quilt. This one. Continue. How do I want to connect that one? Stop to cut threads. Select the next pattern to quilt. This one. Continue. Stop to cut threads. Now I am ready to sew quilt. So let's watch Intelliquilter stitch this design out. I have to admit this really is pretty, even though I don't care for the overstitching around the star. Love the purple and love the turquoise. So you decide if this meets your expectations for a No SewZone, or if you want to explore the other transitions. The other transitions would be jump stitch and tie off, which is what I normally accept. So let me know how you do with your No SewZone, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. If you find these videos helpful, give me a thumbs up. I'd like to hear from you. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye for now.